Hi, welcome to Daily Dose of Anime Recaps. In this video, we'll be taking a look at episodes 3 and 4 of the series Monster Girl Doctor. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next episodes. The episode opens up with a woman running after a group of bandits to catch them. To her bad luck, the group of bandits trick her and make her fall into their trap. She then pulls out a sharp knife and gets ready to fight them. The following day, Dr. Glenn and Saphentite can be seen treating a beautiful slime girl using a special kind of fluid called biometric fluid. Glenn asks the slime girl if she's feeling relaxed, and when she replies with a yes, he tells her that the biometric fluid seems to be working and also mentions that it has the ability to even treat her internal wounds. Soon, the slime girl leaves the clinic, and Glenn and Saphentite converse about their successful use of the biometric fluid. Right then, they are approached by Lindworm Council representative Skady Dragonfelt, along with her bodyguard, Kunai Zanao. Skady is the most powerful person in Lindworm City, and she is the real reason why there's peace in the city, despite containing both humans and monsters. Next, when Skady speaks in a low voice, Kunai completes her sentences for Glenn and Saphentite and mentions that they are there to ask Glenn to take good care of Kunai and attach an arm that she lost during the fight against the bandits. Here we get to know that the lady that we saw at the beginning of the episode is none other than Kunai herself. Skady also states that Glenn needs to find Kunai's lost arm and stitch it using his structure technique. Surprised, Glenn asks Skady why she's there instead of visiting her master, Thule. Skady replies that she went to Thule and got transferred to his clinic. After listening to this, Glenn wants to know if Kunai is a ghoul or a monster before proceeding with her medical treatment. To his surprise, Skady tells him that Kunai is neither of them and is actually someone who was created by stitching several parts of human corpses together, a flesh golem. In the next scene, despite Glenn having not enough knowledge in treating the golems, Skady leaves Kunai at his clinic, hoping that he can make her better. Kunai speaks to Glenn and clearly tells him that she's a product of an experiment done by some highly ambitious doctors. She mentions that the doctors gave her a lot of trouble, compelling her to develop hatred towards the profession. She then leaves Glenn's clinic, telling him that she does not need his help and will find her lost arm on her own. Following this, when Kunai reaches the market searching for her arm, she notices a bandit who attacked her the previous night and decides to go after him. To her bad luck, the bandit purposefully walks towards an empty street, ambushing Kunai for the second time. Here, they strike Kunai with a sharp sword and chop off her leg. At the same time, Glenn also leaves the clinic to search for Kunai's arm, as Skady ordered him earlier. He asks Saphentite to look after the clinic and walks towards the same market. When he's thinking about Kunai searching for her arm, he hears a group of people screaming out of fear. Without wasting any time, he approaches the group and meets Tessalia there. Tessalia tells him that someone has been murdered and shows him a chopped off leg lying in the middle of the street. Seeing this, Glenn quickly walks to the leg and recognizes it as Kunai's. He takes a closer look at the stitches made on the leg and deduces that the person who created Kunai was not even a doctor. Meanwhile, Kunai drags herself to a wall and is sad to have lost her arm and a leg. She believes that she's now useless and can no longer be a bodyguard for Skady. While she's thinking all this, she suddenly starts feeling sensations in her legs and screams, as Glenn is caressing and looking after it. Here, we get to know that the pieces of flesh used to build Kunai are not all dead and contain some part of their dead owners. Kunai can hear the voices coming out of the flesh, and this is the real reason that pisses her off. On the other hand, Glenn runs into Lulala and inquires about her health. He then tells her that he's actually searching for Kunai's missing arm. To his surprise, Lulala pulls out Kunai's arm from inside the water and hands it over to Glenn. She seems angry as she believes that someone chopped it off and threw it into the water. Glenn is so relieved to find the arm and he cleans it thoroughly. While he's touching the arm and leg, Kunai feels the sensation and gets enraged, assuming that it's Glenn who's playing with her body parts. After searching for Kunai for a bit of time, Glenn finally finds her struggling and leaning against a wall. He quickly approaches her and, despite her resistance, starts stitching her arm. He also tells her that her creators didn't stitch her blood vessels properly, which is why she's hearing the voices of dead people in her head. Dr. Glenn then quickly stitches the blood vessels first and proceeds to stitch the outer layer. As soon as he does so, Kunai stops hearing the unusual voices and feels relieved. Like Glenn's other patients, Kunai also gets aroused when Glenn stitches back her leg and unknowingly rubs her private parts. Despite this, she really likes the way Glenn treats her doctor and thanks him for his help. After the stitching is over, Kunai feels that Dr. Glenn is different from any other normal doctor and starts liking him. Back at Dr. Glenn's clinic, Saphentite's monster friend visits her and gives her a harpy egg. She's actually there to meet Dr. Glenn, but when she gets to know that he's away, she leaves, not before telling Saphentite that Glenn is actually cheating on her. Later at night, when Dr. Glenn returns to the clinic, Saphentite tries to pull off a prank on him, pretending to be pregnant. However, she fails to do so, as Glenn is a very clever doctor, and it's tough to fool him. Compelled, Saphentite reveals that she's actually hiding the abandoned harpy egg that her friend left at the clinic earlier. Glenn takes a closer look at the egg and deduces that it's unfertilized. Right then, Saphentite feels like someone has arrived outside their clinic and suggests to the doctor that they hide. The ones who are outside are none other than the same bandits who attacked Kunai earlier. They quickly break into the clinic, but Saphentite counterattacks and knocks one of them down. Realizing that they are greater in number, Saphentite takes Dr. Glenn and flees from the clinic. While running on the streets carrying a harpy egg, Saphentite deduces that the bandits might have seen Dr. Glenn with Kunai and are the real slave traders. While they are discussing visiting the council and asking for protection, Kunai arrives there and informs them that the bandits who attacked them are the group who are slave trading harpies. She also tells them that the traders have actually kidnapped harpies and are forcing them to lay eggs to sell them to humans, having weird tastes in the black market. Suddenly, when Saphentite requests Kunai to protect them, one of the slave traders tries to attack them but gets slain by Kunai. Kunai then takes them toward the waterways and informs them that they are on a mission to capture the traders and free the harpies. She also mentions that they will be safe if they stay close to her. Next, she takes them to a boat where Skady is waiting for them to arrive. Soon, Lulala also emerges from the water and is supposed to be the one pulling the boat. Here, when Dr. Glenn protests against making Lulala pull the boat to the dangerous mission, Kunai tells him that Lulala has been assigned as one of the undercover agents for the city, and it's her first ever mission for them. She also lets the doctor know that Lulala is well paid for her position, and they believe that she is the perfect person to do the job. Seeing the doctor caring for her, Lulala also shows herself and assures the doctor that she's actually fine doing the job. On their way, Kunai tells everyone that the slavers' hideout is at one of the oldest pieces of land in the waterways. She goes on to say that during the renovation work, the city council made developments underwater for the monsters, but didn't touch some parts above the water. Slaves used one of the untouched parts to enter the city and are causing havoc at the moment. Skady feels really sad for not being able to save her city. Kunai also informs them about the other troop guarding the front entrance while they're planning to invade the slavers' location from the back and free the harpy girls. Eventually, Kunai mentions that visiting their clinic was also part of their plan to apprehend the slavers and makes it clear that they are actually going to save the harpies. Just when they're about to cross the bridge and arrive at their destination, a group of slavers attacks them with bows and arrows. Seeing them, Kunai asks the others to put their head down and faces the attackers. To their surprise, Tessalia shows up with her assistants and fights against the attackers. Kay and Lorna assure Dr. Glenn that they will handle the situation and suggest they move forward. Dr. Glenn thanks them for their help and leaves the place. One of the bandits tries to provoke Tessalia, telling her that humans and monsters can never live together and are bound to fight. Hearing this, Tessalia gives him an example of Lindworm City, as humans and monsters have been living there together for over a decade. Meanwhile, Kunai and others stop at a place, and just when they're about to move forward, the head of the bandits confronts them and asks them to return back. However, Kunai doesn't listen to him and starts fighting, asking the others to continue their mission. On their way, several slave traders attack the group, but Skady and Saphentite fight them with great skill and eliminate them their way. Soon, they find the room where the harpies are kept and assure them that they are there to help them. Dr. Glenn takes a good look at their condition and deduces that they have been under great torture and feels bad for the harpies. At the same time, the harpies tell the doctor that one of them is suffering from severe stomach pain. Dr. Glenn then asks Saphentite for a source of light and immediately starts checking on the harpy's stomach. Moments later, he finds out that she's suffering from pain because of an egg that is stuck in her fallopian tubes and deduces that he needs to help her. He asks Skady and Saphentite to keep an eye on the bandits and starts massaging the abdomen of the harpy to help her relax and lay her egg. Right then, some of the bandits break into the room, but Saphentite knocks them away with her strong tail. While fighting with the bandits, she also mentions two things that she's been hiding from Dr. Glenn. One of them is that she's suffering from from an incurable disease, and the other is that her mother has asked her to kill the Litbeit family in case the treaty between the monsters and humans gets breached. In the middle of the battle, one of the bandits manages to stab Saphentite's tail with a poisonous knife, making her fall unconscious to the floor. In the next scene, when Saphentite opens her eyes, she finds herself resting in one of the council's rooms and Dr. Glenn looking after her. Glenn then tells her that the poison in the knife had no effect on her and could only make her fall asleep. Following this, Saphentite tries to tell him about the secret that she's been hiding from him, but it turns out that he is already well aware of the promise that she made to her mother and that her family is very skillful in fighting and killing people. Saphentite is shocked to hear this, and seeing his interest in him, she pulls him closer and tries to force herself on him. To her bad luck, it turns out that the effect of the poison hasn't been completely eliminated, and she falls asleep. The episode ends with Saphentite asking Glenn to hold her tail till she falls asleep, and Glenn agreeing to do so.